The atmosphere is thick with the lingering tension from the mission. Colton, Zach, Chris, and Mr. Rence sit in chairs across from Connor's desk, still processing everything that had unfolded at the cabin. The room is dimly lit, the soft hum of the Hero League HQ outside barely audible through the thick walls. Mr. Dugan stands in the corner, his arms crossed, still looking shaken but trying to hold it together. Connor sits behind his desk, hands folded in front of him, his father, Carl, president of the Hero League, standing nearby, his arms behind his back, watching the young heroes with a proud but measured expression. Connor takes a deep breath, looking at the group. Connor: "All right, let's debrief. I've read the preliminary report, but I want to hear it from you. Colton, why don't you start?" Colton nods, sitting up a little straighter. Colton: "Well, it started when we got to the cabin. We knew Eleanor, Diane, was planning to kill Dugan, but we didn't expect her to make her move so fast. We broke in just as she was about to cook him. Zach, yeah, she had this huge pot, knives ready. It was bad. We created the distraction with Mr. Rence driving the van into the side of the cabin, which gave Dugan a chance to escape. That's when things got intense. Chris, we had to use every bit of our powers to subdue her. She's not your average villain. She's got the abilities of multiple superheroes, so we had to stay on our toes. Mr. Rence, but between all of us we managed to take her down. She wasn't prepared for us working as a team." Connor listens carefully, his eyes narrowing in thought. He turns to Mr. Dugan, who's been quiet up until now. Connor, Dugan, from your perspective, how did things unfold? Dugan takes a deep breath, uncrossing his arms and stepping forward. Dugan: "Look, I didn't believe them at first. I thought they were just messing with me, but they saved my life, there's no doubt about that. Diane, Eleanor, she was going to kill me. I got out of the cabin when they distracted her, but they did the real work. They took her down." Connor nods slowly, glancing at his father, Carl, who gives him a small nod of approval. "Connor, it sounds like you handled the situation well. You showed resourcefulness, teamwork, and quick thinking. That's the kind of thing we need more of around here." Carl steps forward now, his presence commanding. "Carl, Colton, Zach, Chris, Mr. Rence, you've proven yourselves. You're not beginner superheroes anymore." He lets the words hang in the air for a moment, allowing the gravity of the statement to sink in. "Carl, you've seen real danger and you've survived it. You're ready for bigger challenges. You're still novice heroes, one step above beginners, but that's an important step. You've shown you can handle yourselves in the field." The group exchanges proud but cautious glances. Colton can feel his heart pounding in his chest. Not beginners anymore. "Carl, however, I want to make it clear. You've only scratched the surface of the evil that's out there. You're not ready for the full scope of what we deal with, but you are ready for something more. That's why Connor and I have decided to give you your next mission." Connor picks up where his father leaves off. "Connor, we were planning to send a different team out to investigate intel we've gathered on a new weapon the Villain League is developing, a cloning device that can create evil versions of superheroes. If this weapon is completed, it could turn the tide of power against us. We need to shut it down before it's fully operational." Zach leans forward, intrigued. "Zach? A cloning device? Like they could make evil versions of us?" Connor: "Exactly. It's experimental, but if they succeed, they could build an army of supervillains with our powers. That's why this mission is so critical. We originally had a more experienced team lined up, but after your performance at the cabin, we've decided to send you 4. Colton, Zach, Chris, and Mr. Rence." Colton's eyes widen. "Colton, you want us to go after the Villain League?" "Connor, you won't be going alone. Mr. Callaway will go with you to keep an eye on things and make sure it doesn't get out of hand. But this is your mission. You've earned it." Mr. Callaway, who has been standing quietly, steps forward and nods. "Mr. Callaway, I've got your backs, don't worry." Before anyone else can speak, Mr. Dugan clears his throat. Dugan: excuse me. I know I was, sort of the victim in all of this, but I did fight her off a bit. I mean, I'm part of this team too. Can I go with them? I want to prove that I can hold my own." Connor looks skeptical. Connor: "Dugan, you were nearly killed by Eleanor. Are you sure you're ready for another mission this soon?" Dugan straightens his posture, determined. Dugan: "Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not just going to sit on the sidelines while my team goes out there. I may have messed up by not listening to them earlier, but we're a team. We promised to fight crime together, and I want to be part of this. Colton glances at Zach, Chris and Mr. Rence, and they all nod in agreement. Colton, he's part of the team, Commander. We all fight together. Connor studies them for a moment, then nods reluctantly. Connor, all right, Dugan, you can go, but you better be ready for what's coming. This isn't a cabin in the woods. This is the Villain League, and it's going to be dangerous. Dugan nods, grateful. Dugan, I'll be ready. Carl steps forward again, his tone stern but encouraging. Carl, you've all come a long way, but remember, this mission is about teamwork and strategy. Don't get cocky just because you've had one success. There's a lot more at stake now. Colton, Zach, Chris, Mr. Rence and Mr. Dugan all nod in unison. They're ready. Connor stands up from his desk, signaling that the debriefing is over. Connor, get some rest. You leave tomorrow at dawn. And remember, this mission could change everything. As the group files out of the office, Colton feels the weight of their new status settling on his shoulders. They were no longer just beginner superheroes. They were about to face their biggest challenge yet, and there was no turning back now. The group of heroes, Colton, Zach, Chris, Mr. Rence, Mr. Dugan and Mr. Callaway, are seated around a circular table, their faces lit by the soft glow of the overhead lights. A half-played game of Sorry is spread out in front of them. Laughter and casual banter fill the room, though beneath the surface the weight of the upcoming mission lingers in everyone's minds. Colton, known to his friends as the Blink, moves his game piece forward, knocking Zach's piece back to the start with a grin. Colton, sorry, Zach. Zach, better known as Dr. TK, groans and leans back in his chair. Zach, you always do that, man. I'm starting to think you have some sort of lightning speed luck. Chris, otherwise known as King Grass, chuckles as he takes his turn. Chris, nah, he's just the luckiest guy alive. Watch out, Colton's always 2 moves ahead in these games. Mr. Rence, or Shapeshifter, who's leaning against the back of his chair with his arms crossed, looks at the board. Mr. Rence, yeah, but it's not the board game we should be focusing on. This mission tomorrow, it's different. It's not like the time we snuck into the Villain League science lab in Northern Europe and stole a few gadgets. Mr. Callaway, always the mentor, nods gravely. Mr. Callaway, exactly. This time, we're not just stealing gadgets, we're after a prototype, the blueprint for a weapon that could change everything. Colton's smile fades as he places his game piece down. Colton? Yeah, this weapon. It can clone superheroes, right? That's what Connor and Carl said. Zach leans forward, his fingers tapping the edge of the board. Zach, if they succeed in cloning us, making evil versions of us, imagine the damage they could do. They could turn the public against us, make the world doubt their hero league. Chris shakes his head, his expression darkening. Chris, it's not just about turning people against us. Think about the power. An army of evil superheroes with all of our abilities, but none of the morals or restraints. The Villain League could take over everything. Mr. Rence sighs, adjusting his posture. Mr. Rence, this isn't a stealth mission to grab a few gadgets. We're going right into the heart of their operations. They're going to be guarding this prototype with everything they've got. We'll have to be ready for anything. Mr. Dugan, or Blade Buddy, nods slowly, his fingers tracing the edge of one of the cards in his hand. Dugan, I still can't believe I almost became, well, you know. If this weapon works, they could make a clone of me that's just as dangerous as Eleanor, someone with my powers, but worse. Mr. Callaway's voice is calm but firm. Mr. Callaway, that's why we have to stop them. We can't let them get that weapon operational, and we definitely can't let them get their hands on a sample of any of you. Colton glances around at the group, the gravity of the mission weighing heavily on him. Colton, no room for mistakes this time, Zach adds. Zach? And if they get any piece of us, hair, skin, anything, they'll be able to clone us. We can't give them that chance. The group falls silent for a moment, each of them contemplating the stakes. They weren't just playing a game anymore. Tomorrow, everything could change. In the dimly lit halls of Villain League headquarters, Plasma Man, the fearsome leader of the villains, sits at his massive desk reviewing blueprints for the headquarters remodeling project. His office is sleek and dark, adorned with glowing plasma orbs that pulse with energy. Seated beside him is his loyal assistant, the Snake, a thin, sly villain with slick-back hair and serpentine movements. The Snake? I think the new additions to the lower levels will give us better containment for any guests we might have in the future. Plasma Man nods, barely paying attention. His mind is elsewhere, preoccupied with the growing threats from the Hero League. Plasma Man, yes, make sure we have plenty of room for experimentation as well. The door to the office swings open, and Plasma Boy, Plasma Man's son, rushes in with a look of urgency. His eyes glow with the same bright plasma energy as his father's, though his youthful face betrays his impatience. Plasma Boy, Father, Diane, Eleanor, she's been captured! Plasma Man's expression darkens, his hands slamming down on the desk as the room crackles with the energy radiating from his body. Plasma Man? What do you mean, captured? By who? Plasma Boy steps forward, his tone filled with resentment. Plasma Boy, by that group of heroes, Colton, Zach, Chris, Mr. Rence and the others. They defeated her. They call themselves the Blink, Dr. TK, Kinggrass, Shapeshifter, Blade Buddy and Callaway. Plasma Man's face twists into a snarl. Plasma Man! Those meddling heroes. Eleanor was supposed to be untouchable. How could they defeat her? Plasma Boy continues, pacing angrily. Plasma Boy, they planned it well. They knew exactly what they were doing. Caught her off guard at the cabin. They're more dangerous than we thought. Plasma Man stands, fury radiating off him like heat from a fire. Plasma Man, they've crossed the line and they will pay dearly for this. We can't let this insult stand. The Snake, who's been watching quietly, flicks his tongue and speaks up. The Snake? Perhaps now is the time to use the prototype, my lord. We've almost perfected it. Plasma Man turns to him, his eyes gleaming. Plasma Man? Yes, the cloning device. If we can create evil versions of those heroes, we'll crush them with their own powers. Plasma Boy nods eagerly. Plasma Boy, we just need a sample, a piece of their hair, their skin, anything. Plasma Man grins wickedly, the light from the plasma orbs reflecting in his eyes. Plasma Man, then we'll get it. Send one of our operatives to collect a sample from each of them. I don't care how it's done. Sneak into Hero League headquarters. Intercept them on their mission. Whatever it takes. Just get me what I need. The Snake bows slightly, his voice dripping with venomous excitement. The Snake. Consider it done, my lord. Plasma Man turns back to his son, his voice filled with dark promise. Plasma Man, once we have their samples, we'll create the most powerful team of villains the world has ever seen. They'll wish they never set foot in our territory. Plasma Boy smirks, his eyes glowing brighter. Plasma Boy, soon, father, soon we'll have everything we need. As the plans are set into motion, Plasma Man's fury simmers, the promise of revenge fueling his every thought. The battle was far from over. This was just the beginning, and the heroes had no idea what was coming next.
The next morning, the sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows as Chris, King Grass, makes his way to a gas station just outside Hero League headquarters. He's feeling the weight of the mission ahead, but right now, all he's thinking about is grabbing a couple of Monster energy drinks to stay sharp. The small bell above the door jingles as he enters the station, the smell of stale coffee and gasoline hitting him immediately. He walks straight to the coolers, scanning the shelves for his favorite flavor. Chris, man, I'm gonna need all the energy I can get for this mission, he mutters to himself, grabbing 2 cans of Monster and heading toward the checkout. As he walks to the register, he barely notices the woman standing in the corner of the store, dressed in a nondescript hoodie and jeans, her face mostly hidden beneath a baseball cap. She watches him intently, her eyes narrowing as she recognizes him. This is the Opposite Lord, a villain known for her ability to manipulate the forces opposite to a superhero's powers. Her target today is simple, Chris, or King Grass, and she knows exactly how to handle him. As Chris pays for his drinks, the woman moves casually toward him, her footsteps silent. She reaches into her pocket, her fingers brushing against a syringe carefully concealed inside. The Opposite Lord. Morning, Chris. Hey, how's it going? The Opposite Lord. Not bad. Stocking up for a long day? Chris. Yeah, big day ahead, need the energy. The Opposite Lord. I get that, it's always good to stay prepared. As Chris turns to leave the gas station, she follows him outside, her movements calculated but casual. Outside, the gravel crunches under their feet, the small pebbles scattered across the parking lot catching the light. Chris, still oblivious to the danger, walks toward his bike, but as he's about to mount it, something strange happens. The gravel around him begins to shift, swirling slightly as if caught in an invisible current. Chris pauses, frowning as he glances down. Chris, what the? He mutters, watching as the pebbles roll and twist unnaturally around his feet. The Opposite Lord smiles under her cap, her power subtly taking hold. She focuses on the rocks and gravel, the complete opposite of Chris's ability to control grass and plant life, and begins manipulating the pebbles to move in chaotic patterns, disorienting him. Chris. Okay, this is weird. Maybe I need more sleep. He takes a step forward, but the rocks continue to shift, tripping him up slightly. The opposite lord. You all right there? Looks like the ground's messing with you. Chris. Yeah, it's just... something's off. The ground's acting weird. The opposite lord. Maybe it's just the gravel. Can be tricky sometimes. As Chris takes another step toward his bike, the opposite lord sees her opportunity. She pulls the syringe from her pocket, deftly flicking off the cap. Chris, too distracted by the swirling rocks around his feet, doesn't notice as she steps up behind him. Before he can react, she swiftly jabs the syringe into the back of his neck, not deep enough to hurt, but just enough to pull a small strand of his hair into the needle's chamber. Chris. Ow. Must have been a bug. The opposite lord. Yeah, bugs are bad this time of year. Chris. Yeah, maybe that's it. I better get going. Big day ahead. The opposite lord. Take care, she says sweetly, watching as Chris mounts his bike and speeds away, still unaware of what just happened. As Chris disappears down the road, the opposite lord smirks, pulling the syringe from her pocket and holding it up to the light. Inside, a single strand of Chris's hair glints ominously. The opposite lord. Mission accomplished, she whispers to herself. With the sample in hand, she heads back toward Villain League headquarters, ready to deliver her prize to Plasma Man. The opposite lord steps through the grand, darkened halls of Villain League headquarters, her footsteps echoing off the polished marble floors. The air is thick with the low hum of machinery, and the faint sound of voices echoes from deeper within the facility. But she's not interested in the general hustle of villainy today. She's here with a mission completed and a reward in mind. Her hand tightens around the syringe in her pocket as she looks around for Plasma Boy, her heart racing slightly at the thought of what this success could mean. The hair she collected from Chris, King Grass, was the key to activating the cloning prototype, and she knew this would be a game changer. But more importantly, it could finally bring her and Plasma Boy closer to what they've been dreaming of for so long. She stops a passing lackey, a short, nervous villain in training carrying a stack of papers. The opposite lord. Where's Plasma Boy? Lackey. I think he's in the mini golf room, ma'am. The opposite lord nods, barely acknowledging him before continuing her search. The Villain League headquarters is massive, a maze of corridors, training rooms, and secret labs. But the mini golf room? That was Plasma Boy's personal sanctuary, a quirky space where he could unwind from the pressure of being the heir to his father's empire. She finally reaches the door, hearing the sound of a putter hitting a golf ball. A small smirk forms on her lips as she pushes the door open and steps inside. The room is dimly lit, with glowing neon courses set up across the floor, each hole more elaborate and villain-themed than the last. Plasma Boy is at the far end, lining up a shot, his expression focused. The opposite lord. Nice swing, she says with a playful tone, watching as he sends the ball through a windmill with perfectly timed precision. Plasma Boy. Oppie! Didn't expect you back so soon. Thought you were out on a mission. She walks over to him, reaching into her pocket and pulling out the syringe. She holds it up to the faint light, the single strand of Chris's dark hair glinting inside. The opposite lord. I've got something you'll want to see. Plasma Boy. Is that? The opposite lord. It's from King Grass. I got close, distracted him with his opposite, rocks, gravel, anything but grass. He didn't even notice when I took it. Plasma Boy, Oppie, this is perfect. With this, we can start the cloning process with the prototype. My father's going to be thrilled. He gently takes the syringe from her, holding it with reverence. The opposite lord. Think this will finally win his approval? Plasma Boy turns to her, his gaze softening as he leans in and presses a kiss to her lips. Plasma Boy, if this works, he won't have any reason to say no anymore. We've been waiting for so long, but this changes everything. My father might finally allow us to get married. The opposite lord. He's the only thing that's been standing in our way. Plasma Boy, not for much longer. Once this clone of King Grass is operational, the Hero League won't stand a chance. My father will have no choice but to see that we're unstoppable together. The opposite lord feels her pulse quicken at the thought. She had been in love with Plasma Boy for years, ever since they had trained together as young villains in the making, but Plasma Man had always been hesitant, always placing impossible demands on his son, expecting nothing less than perfection. This mission, was their chance to finally prove themselves, both as villains and as partners. Plasma Boy, still holding the syringe, smiles at her, his usual cocky bravado fading into something softer. Plasma Boy, you've done amazing work, Oppie. With this, we're one step closer to everything we've wanted. The opposite Lord, I'd do anything for you, you know that. Plasma Boy, I know, and I'm going to show my father what we can accomplish together. He won't be able to deny us anymore. There's a brief pause, the gravity of the moment settling between them. Plasma Boy glances back at the mini golf course, then at her. Plasma Boy, you want to take a swing before we change the course of villain history? The opposite Lord. I think we've already won this game. Plasma Boy grins, kissing her again before turning toward the door. Plasma Boy, all right then, let's take this to my father. He'll want to get started on the clone immediately. As they walk out of the mini golf room, side by side, the opposite Lord can't help but feel the excitement growing in her chest. This was it, the beginning of the end for the Hero League. And soon, she would finally get everything she had ever wanted.
Strides confidently through the halls of Villain League headquarters, the syringe containing Chris's hair clenched tightly in his hand.
Follows just a step behind him, her heart pounding with excitement.
This was the moment they had been waiting for, one that could change everything. They finally reached the ominous black double doors of Plasma Man's office.
Takes a deep breath and glances at the opposite Lord, who gives him a small, encouraging nod.
He pushes the doors open and steps inside. Plasma Man is seated behind his massive, sleek black desk, his face illuminated by the flickering glow of plasma orbs that float eerily in the room. He looks up as his son enters, his piercing eyes narrowing slightly.
Father, I've got it, a sample of king grass.
Plasma Man's expression doesn't change immediately, but there's a flicker of approval in his eyes as he stands, slowly rounding the desk to approach his son. He takes the syringe from Plasma Boy's hand, holding it up to examine the strand of dark hair inside.
You're sure this is his?
Yes. The opposite Lord got close enough to distract him using her abilities. He didn't even notice when she took it.
The opposite Lord steps forward slightly, nodding.
He was completely disoriented. He never suspected a thing.
Plasma Man studies the syringe for a moment longer before finally allowing a small smile to tug at the corner of his lips.
Excellent. This is exactly what we needed.
He turns abruptly, his long black coat swishing behind him as he strides toward the door at the back of his office that leads to the lower levels of Villain League headquarters.
Come with me.
Plasma Boy and the opposite Lord exchange a quick glance before following Plasma Man down the winding corridor that leads to the underground labs. The air grows colder as they descend, the low hum of machinery vibrating beneath their feet. The deeper they go, the more sinister the atmosphere becomes, with the walls lined with strange experimental devices and containment units holding various failed creations. Finally, they reach a large, reinforced door. Plasma Man presses his hand to a biometric scanner, and the door hisses open, revealing the Villain League's cloning lab. Inside, a team of scientists in dark lab coats are already bustling about, prepping machines and gathering data.
We have the sample. Prepare the cloning process immediately.
Yes, sir. We've been running simulations and everything is ready for the real test. We'll begin the process right away.
Make sure it's perfect. I don't want any mistakes. This clone must be an exact replica, with all the powers of King Grass. None of his weaknesses.
Of course, my lord. We will follow your instructions to the letter.
How long will it take?
The process will take a few hours to fully develop the clone. We'll monitor every stage closely to ensure everything is stable.
We've waited long enough. This clone will be the first of many. Once we perfect the process, we'll have an army of superpowered villains, each one capable of matching the Hero League's best.
And once we have them, we'll crush the Hero League for good.
This is your moment, son. You've proven yourself. When this is complete, you will have secured our legacy.
Thank you, Father. We won't fail.
We're ready for whatever comes next. The Hero League won't know what hit them.
Begin the process. I want regular updates.
Initiating sequence 1. We've successfully extracted the DNA profile from the sample. Everything looks stable so far. The replication process is beginning.
Energy levels are holding steady, Dr. Malik. No fluctuations so far, but we're nearing maximum capacity for the early stages.
Good. We'll maintain this output until the cellular structure starts forming. Keep an eye on the biomatter materializer. This is where things can get tricky.
Understood.
Beginning cellular formation, biomatter being generated. Let's make sure the containment field holds. We don't want any early breaches. Containment field stable, Dr. Malik. Holding at 95%.
How long until the clone is fully formed?
A few more hours, my lord. The process is delicate. We must allow the cells to replicate at a controlled rate to ensure stability. Rushing it could result in complications.
I don't want excuses, I want results. Make sure there are no mistakes.
Yes, my lord, we're on track.
It's working, Father. Soon we'll have a perfect clone of King Grass, with all his powers but none of his weaknesses.
We're entering the critical phase. The DNA is stabilizing, and the cellular structure is becoming more defined.
Powers are emerging. Bioenergy output is consistent with King Grass's abilities. We've nearly completed the initial phase.
We did it. The clone is almost complete.
Once it's fully formed, what's the next step?
We test it, and if it's as powerful as I expect, we move forward with the others. The Hero League won't know what hit them.
We're reaching full integration. Prepare for power fluctuations. The clone's abilities might spike. Containment field holding at 90%. We're nearing full formation.
We need to stabilize the power grid. The clone is drawing more energy than expected.
Redirect auxiliary power to the cloning chamber. We can't afford to lose stability now.
Finish the process. I want this clone operational as soon as possible.
Yes, my lord.